hand if you have been to 5 or more in this series this year. How about 3? Okay. Who is graduating in this room? Okay. So who is finishing their first semester in this room? So this series was the brainchild of Carolina Sanchez, who is right there in the back. Stand up. Carolina is the student programming lead for the college, and she had an idea that what should happen is from the day you hit the door, you should have an idea of what careers are out there, starting to see yourself in a career-based role, and there would be no better way to do that than to feature our very own spectacular alumni. So today with us are Edwin and Stephanie, who will introduce themselves, and I will not steal their thunder. But I want to say that we are spending a lot of time featuring our alumni because we want to inspire these students that the world is theirs and how exciting it is. So Carolina identified 7 different segments so that students could kind of see things beyond just, you know, the first job, if you will. And we've seen all kinds of opportunities. We started in this room. Who was here for the sports start? Great, that's wonderful. And we enjoyed a presentation from a group from Crypto, Angel Stadium, and SoFi, and we kind of moved our way into the hotel world, the restaurant world. We had an alum from Encore who does presentations. So is there anybody in the room who didn't get at least one new idea about where you might work when you leave us? Better not raise your hands. You'll be in my office next week. Just kidding. So I would like to take a minute to welcome our Board of Advisors. Please, if you would, stand so they can see who you are. I'd like to recognize the Chair of the Board of Advisors, Javier Cano. General Manager for JW Marriott and Ritz-Carlton, Los Angeles, LA Live. And you, I hope, will get a chance to see a little bit more. But what we wanted for the board, we have several new members, and I would like the new members to stand up just one more time. You're never going to get to eat. Sorry. I want to take a minute to applaud the Board Success Committee. Eva Wasserman is here today, chair of that committee, and Carrie Wieland, who couldn't be with us. Eva, will you wave so they can see you? I want you to see how hard the board is working to bring new talent so that you have new opportunities. So this is a day for us to celebrate alumni in many ways. Last week, 2 weeks ago, Eric Atterbury, who is an alum of ours, opened a restaurant called Fountain Grain and Greens in the Hollywood area. And Eric started with French Laundry and Bouchon, so I'll give you that. He worked for Odium for many years. He was a student assistant for this course, and he happens to be a local to my hometown, South Pasadena. So I've known him since he was 15 running cross country. It was super exciting to see him open his own venue, hear all the woes and everything, but see the passion. And the salad dressing you are eating today has 50 herbs that Chef Cherie Moni picked herself and conditioned and everything. And yesterday she said, wow, this is a recipe. And today she said, it's awesome. So it is pickled green goddess, basically, and it is a Eric special, and he is our first alum to be featured. As you walk down the walkway, you saw 7 others, so you can see this is a place where dreams are happening, and I do hope that you will enjoy the presentation from 2 of the alums today who work with Disney. Please help me welcome Edwin.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yeah? Good, boy? Okay. Good afternoon. I am a Senior Guest Experience Manager with the Pixar Place Hotel over at the Disneyland Resort. I have been there for about, let's say about 10 years now, working there. On and off, you'll hear a little bit about my journey, right? And my name is Edwin Lugo, okay? So I'm gonna make this a little bit interactive, probably a little bit different from the ones you've seen before you've attended, okay? So I'm gonna ask everybody to stand up for me. putting you all to work a little bit. So I don't know if you noticed the way that I introduced myself, right? I started out by talking a little bit about myself, right? And then I gave you my name, okay? Reason being is that people tend to remember, or usually tend to forget, I should say, your name, right, when you're trying to introduce yourself, because that's the first thing you say. It's natural, right? We say, good afternoon, my name is Edwin, right? But you want to start off by talking a little bit about yourself, right? So I know a lot of us are students here. Some of us, again, are here with the board, right? So I want you to just kind of talk a little bit about yourself, maybe say what year of school you're in, right? What your major is, what you're interested in pursuing, and then say your name, okay? So find a buddy next to you, okay? And then kind of do that same thing, right? So again, good afternoon. I'm a senior guest experience manager with the Pixar Place Hotel. All right. So I think everybody has now introduced themselves a little bit, right? We've gotten to know a little bit about each other, okay? So I'm going to ask everybody to go ahead and take a seat now, all right? Once you're finished with your conversation, go ahead and finish your last thought.
Wow, Edwin, you opened Pandora's box.
I know, I did. All right. So how did that feel for everyone? A little bit awkward, right? A little bit different. I know we're coming towards the end of the semester. Is that correct, Dr. Jones? Yeah, so we're coming towards the end of the semester. So I'm sure a lot of us already know each other. We probably sat down with somebody familiar. But I hope you were able to gain, a new point of contact, a new network for yourself, right? And kind of enhance that, right? So a little bit about my journey. I'll tell you. So I came here to Cal Poly Pomona. I had graduated from a high school over in San Bernardino. It's Arroyo Valley High School, if anybody's from the IE. Okay, hey, there we go. So I graduated there in 2012. I applied to Cal Poly Pomona. I came to visit the campus. I did, I forgot what it was at the time, but it was a little bit of a tour of the campus, kind of like an open house to kind of get everybody introduced into the school. I'm not sure if they still do that today or if you did something similar, right? But when I did that, that's what sold me on this school, right? And I'm sure a lot of that when you guys come to campus, just being up here, right, just sold you. I mean, even just the view, the breathtaking view that we have out here, it's incredible, right? So that, coming onto campus and just seeing it in person and seeing the kitchens and everything like that, that's what sold me. I came in here not really knowing what it was that I wanted to do. In terms of, I knew what I wanted to do hospitality. That's what I knew. But what focus did I want to do? I did not know. I had an inkling that I really wanted to do restaurants. So I kind of stuck through that path for most of my time here, and I'll talk a little bit about that, right? But a major part of my story is that I lived on campus. Anybody else here live on campus? Yeah, awesome. Palmitas, if that's, yeah, no? No longer there. Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Well, Palmitas Hall, I love that, and we built a community there, and I'm sure a lot of you that live on campus, you build your own community, or again, you build that community when you're up here, up on the hill, right? So with my journey here, I met a core group of my friends. I don't know if you recognize a familiar face up here, Christina. For those of you that maybe saw her, do her I'll Be Next speaker series, but she was here as well. We actually met each other. We graduated the same year. She was in my Palmitas Hall. We lived together, so I grew very close with her. And so a lot of my life here was on campus life. I lived here all 4 years. I moved around. I lived in the residence halls. I lived over in the suites for a little bit. And then I lived off campus here off the street a little bit as well, right? But my journey here was really segmented in terms of, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And a lot of you are going to figure that out yourselves, right? You're going to come in thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the focus that I want to set on. But I can tell you that's going to change. It changed for me completely. When I came in here, like I said, I really wanted to focus more on the restaurant side of things. So that was my path. I did the RKR series, right? I worked here with Chef Cherie. She's still here. That was her first year teaching our class, and she did an incredible job. Shout out to her loaded baked potato soup. I still cook that today. So a lot of it was segmented, right? Like that I said, okay, I want to do restaurants, right? And I told myself from the very beginning, I'm not going to focus on hotels. I'm not doing that. And I don't know if you heard of me at the beginning, right? I work at the Pixar Place Hotel now. So again, that tells you a little bit about my journey. And again, I just want you to remember that, right? That as you go on through life and as you go on through these 4 years, your career paths, your choices of what you're going to do is all going to change, right? You may have one idea right now, and then the next year that's going to completely change because it's just going to off-track you, right? So just know and just be flexible with yourself and have a little bit of grace with yourself because it's going to change, right? One of the other big moments that I like to call out here, if anybody has or is planning to do the study abroad program, please do so. I got to participate in it. I was one of the lucky 43 few that got to go. So this is a picture here. It's a little bit cropped out, right? But that's where we got to go. We were in Florence at that time. It's a really cool program. It was 4 weeks for when I did it. The first week was just pure travel. We landed in Rome. And then we traveled by bus up to the city of Florence, up the coastline. And our final 3 weeks was in Florence where the school was at. So we lived in an apartment there in the city. And we would wake up every day, 5 days out of the week. 5 days out of the week. We would go to school Monday through Friday. Saturday was usually our homework day because we had to do a bunch of homework. And then Sunday was our free day. So we really only got 3 Sundays out of the week where we really got to hang out. But even then, we made time after that, right? I mean, you're in Florence. This is the trip of a lifetime. You want to take advantage of it, right? So even after school was done, we were there from, I believe, 8 to 3 p.m. It's a long school day. And after that, we just went out and explored the city to get to know the culture, right? And really envelop ourselves. Another pivotal moment that I like to talk about with Cal Poly Pomona is the RKR series, right? I know a lot of the students up here in the back are already doing that right now, right? Or some of you will get to participate later on in your year, right? And same thing, again, just keep yourself open to it, right? I closed myself off to the hotel series, and it might have been best for me to do that, right, to kind of gain a little bit more wealth of that knowledge. But even then, I got to gain that sense of experience from the restaurant, and I'm super grateful for that. I love that core group of people that I got to work with. I still keep in contact with them each day, and it was a great time. It was a great time. So I think you just have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have out here at Cal Poly, because there's just a plethora of things that you can do, right? As you know, especially here as a first-year student, you get overwhelmed by how much there is to do, right? But just pick something, right? And build that network, whatever it is for you, right? For me, a lot of it, I focused it on campus life. Like I said, I lived at the dorm, so I built my community within the dorms and the suites that I lived in. But for you, again, you may be local, you may be traveling here, right? So find your community here at the college, right? Find your community and find that grounding for yourself and build that network, because I promise you, you're going to use that for years to come in the later years, okay? So during my time here at Cal Poly Pomona, getting into my Disney journey, I ended up applying for the Disney College program. I actually applied twice. The first time I didn't get it. I applied my freshman year. And now for those of you that are familiar with the college program, I'm sure you all know, or if you've heard of it, right? It's no longer offered here in Anaheim, right? But it is offered over in Florida. So if you're adventurous, right, and you want to take that next step and you're like, I'm ready to leave California, then by all means, head over to Florida, right, and do the college program there. But that's how I started my journey here with Disney back in 2013. I hired into the college program. I hired in within custodial. So I really got to learn a lot about the parks, right? A lot of people think, oh, custodial, I mean, what's there to really learn about it? I learned a lot, right? Especially with the college program, they teach you a little bit about the legacy of Disneyland, right? They teach you a little bit about leadership basics, but they focus a lot of what we call the 5 keys there. Anybody here work for Disney by any chance? Yeah? Who knows what the 5 keys are? Do you know them? Off the top of your head? It's safety, courtesy, show, inclusion, efficiency, okay? Safety, courtesy, show, inclusion, efficiency. I put them in the wrong order, right? Safety, courtesy, inclusion, show, and efficiency, all right? That's the order. So those are the 5 keys, right? And that's where we kind of envelop the program around. And they teach you all that during these courses, right? But then also you get to learn a little bit about the history, and again, those leadership basics while you're in the program, all while working 5 days a week, right? And I was still going to school. I did not leave Cal Poly Pomona. My usual schedule was I would work Sunday, Monday. I'd be off Tuesday, Thursday. I'd work Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday, right? Because Tuesday and Thursday I'd be up here during school, all of that, right? So I kept myself pretty busy, and that's what I mean. Like a lot of it was focused on my campus life, but I also focused a lot of my career in terms of what I wanted to do. And when I went into Disney, I figured, I think this is what I want to do. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Disney, little technical error. Oh. There we go. So when I worked at Disney, like I said, this is me back in 2013 as a custodian. I learned a lot during that, but I really wanted to learn a little bit more and get to know a little bit more about another operation. I was always drawn to attractions. So after my program ended, you had the opportunity to stay within that department, right, and continue working, or you could choose to transfer and apply somewhere else, right? So that's what I did. I ended up transferring, and I went to work for Fantasyland Attractions. I was there for about 2 years. I worked all the rides that are behind the castle. We call them the classic attractions, which is like Pinocchio, Snow White, right, the carousel, all those behind the castle. And I also knew Storybook. That's me right here on a boat going into Monster the Whale. So I got to work those areas right there. And I really grew up there, right, because that was towards the end of my college career. I was getting ready to graduate. And I graduated, right? You saw my last picture that I graduated in 2016. And I kind of made the decision for myself, I could stay here and continue that path, right? But if you work at Disney, and you may know a little bit about it, I'm sure Stephanie's going to share a little bit about her journey too. Sometimes it may be a little bit more difficult to move up there, right? Because you kind of have to build that network. You kind of have to really put your pedal to the metal, right? And I really wanted to grow faster, right? So I kind of made the daring move. I made a really bold move. I actually ended up leaving the company. And I found an opportunity to work with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. That's me on the right top corner there. And I worked with their management trainee program. I had a very jarring time there, I will say. It was incredibly, I had a lot of incredible learning moments there. It was not what I expected, very challenging. But I gained a lot of that, and I gained a lot of self-resilience through that. And I was able to apply all that, right? Everything that I learned there, and especially the business aspect of things, right? You don't really get to learn that as you are a cast member within the Disneyland Resort. As you move up and become a lead, you get to learn a little bit more of the business aspect of it, right? But it really takes you to kind of meet one-on-one with that manager and just kind of learn, okay, what is it exactly that I need to do to manage my business here? And that wasn't always easy, right? Because us as managers, we also get pretty busy, right? So I always had to seek out that person to kind of find them and see what it was that they were doing. So that's why I made the move again to go work for Enterprise, to just learn a little bit more of that business aspect. So I learned that, I took all of that, and while I was there, I found out that they were looking for applications for what's called the Disney Leadership Essentials Program. So it's kind of it was a new program that they built. They had what's called the Emerging Leaders Program, but it's basically their management trainee program there that we have at Disney, okay? They were just starting that program out, so it was gonna be the first pilot program. I applied, didn't think I was gonna get in. I kind of just took it as an opportunity, I'm gonna apply, see what happens. At least I gained the interview experience, right? And that was gonna be more than enough for me. So I applied, I went through it, I got through the application process. I did a one-on-one interview over the phone. I did a panel interview, so I had 3 executives in front of me, and they were all asking me questions. And then finally, my last one was I was walking with one of the VPs of the departments that I was gonna be working in. It was me and another candidate. And it was for parking that I was considered for. So what happened was I found out through the grapevine, she ended up getting it. I didn't. But a week before the program was supposed to start, I got a phone call saying, hey, Edwin, we actually have a spot that's open for you. It'd be in hotels. Is that something that you're interested in? And I talked about that already, right? I was like, hotels, not for me. But, I felt like I had learned enough. I was able to apply it, and I was like, you know what, why not? Give it a shot. So I went back to the resort. I got hired in as a guest experience manager through the DLE program. That's my leader there. She's still my current leader today, Julia. And I hired in, and I started working with the Paradise Pier Hotel. So I was thrown into an area. I oversaw the housekeeping department with Julia, and it was completely new for me. I knew a little bit, right, because I was custodial, right, so I knew that cleaning aspect of it. But, I was just getting thrown into all of this, so I didn't really know the Disney leadership basics because I didn't get that when I was a lead there at the time, right? So I had to learn all of this, and then at the same time, I'm, probably 24 at this time, 25. I'm leading a group of people that are probably, could be my parents, my grandparents, right? And I am supposed to be the one that's giving them feedback. I'm supposed to be the one that's coaching them through these times, right? And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what housekeeping was whatsoever. I had to learn all of that and really, really put myself and throw myself into the operation. And I mean, that's what we do in hospitality, right? I mean, that's the only way that we learn is working alongside our staff and team, right? Same with you would at the restaurant, right? When things get tough, you're not looking from afar, right, and seeing what's going on. No, you're going to get your hands dirty, right? You're going to get in there and learn a little bit about the operation and really, really envelop yourself in it, right? So I did that. I applied myself, and I moved, and I really got to learn about what it means to work in a hotel and what it means to work in housekeeping. So my journey here, I've moved around a little bit within the resort, and especially within the hotels. And if you're a manager at Disney, you know you move around quite a bit, right? And you got to be open to that, right? You got to be open to that change, and I hope you get that across, from this story as well, as that change is inevitable. It's going to happen, right? So whatever comes your way, you just kind of have to look at that open door and just take it in, all right? And step inside and see what opens up for you, okay? So after I had finished about 6 months, I was in the middle of my program, of my Disney Leadership Essentials program. I got asked if I wanted to go over to the Grand California Hotel and support their housekeeping team. And I said, sure, why not? It's the Grand. It's a newer hotel, right? They had just gotten their renovation done, so they had brand new rooms and everything. And they had put me in charge of the suites. So I was like, okay, whoa, this is too much responsibility, right? But again, I really had to look within myself and had to take a step back and say, okay, you know what, I can do this. So again, I got back in there. I worked with the cast members. I knew a little bit about the housekeeping, right, their operation. But same thing, even though it's housekeeping at the Grand California Hotel within the Disney Resort, it's completely different from the housekeeping team over at what's now the Pixar Place Hotel, right? But back then, the Paradise Pier Hotel. Reason is that there's just more cast members there. Their operation just looks a little bit different, right? So again, you just have to dive in. So now, as I'm getting used to it, right, I'm 4 months in there, I get tapped on the shoulder again. Hey, Edwin, we have another opportunity for you. Would you like to go over to the front office? Sure, why not? Heck, I'm already well-versed within the housekeeping. I'm learning that. And that's when I went over to the front office team over at the Grand California Hotel. I got to learn about that operation because I'd always wanted to. I'm now, almost, I think a year and a half into my program. I'm sorry, not my program, a year and a half into my career journey. And I learned, a little bit more about what that front office operation was. A little bit of backstory with that is when I entered this program, what's called the Disney Leadership Essentials Program, I entered it at what's called a project hire. So this is all technical stuff, but so that way you kind of understand where my head was at the time. I hired in as a project hire, meaning that at any point, if there wasn't a spot for me available anywhere, the company could just end my job there, right? They could say, this is it, we're ending past, and I would be left without a job. Versus a lot of my cohort who hired into the Disney Leadership Essentials journey with me, they would actually get to go back to their area. So they would still have a job after this. So when I was at the front office, I was still under that project hire status. So I got tapped on the shoulder again after 3 months of being there, and I got asked, hey, Edwin, it looks like we finally have a permanent opportunity. I was hoping it was at the hotels, but it's actually going to be with the custodial team over at Disneyland Park. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, obviously I'm going to take it, right, because I need that permanent status, right? I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose my job. But then I thought about it even more. When I was moving over there, it was almost 5 years to the day that I had hired into the company. So I think about that, right? I started out in custodial in 2013. I'm moving over to this custodial team as their leader 5 years later, almost to the day. And I think about that. What a full circle journey for me. And it's incredible. Again, just by being open to the idea of opening those doors and going into them and not knowing what to expect, it's led me to where I am today. So I'm really grateful and thankful for that. Working in custodial was very difficult as well. That operation had over 600 cast members that I was overseeing. So it was a lot, and we had a 13-person team. And so when you have 13 people all in a room with all different ideas of how the operation should be ran, it's a little chaotic, right? So you really have to delve yourself in and really figure out, okay, what are those critical points that we really have to hit? What are those critical areas and targets that we really want to maintain? And I really got to learn a little bit more about the business side of things here at Disneyland Park because we focused a lot about our medallia scores, our scores that our guests leave us, right? You get to see all of that information and see how you're making an impact. While I was in custodial, I got to open up Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, so that was also very exciting. I experienced COVID back in 2020 on that team, so that was a whirlwind. But on top of that, you really, if you think about it, we got to open a theme park all over again. That's only ever been done once, back in 1955. It's never been done since, especially for a long time such as that. So if you think about it, I got to reopen a theme park again. So that was pretty incredible. As I made my journey through there, I really wanted to go to that next step. There's levels here within our career when you become a manager. You either hire in as a stage manager or a guest experience manager. A guest experience manager is one that's over at the hotels, and a stage manager is one that works in the parks. After that, there's levels to it. You can become a senior, which is what I am now. You can then become an area leader, and then you can become an operations manager, and so on and so forth until it gets up to a director, VP, so on. And that's kind of how our hierarchy works, right? So again, I decided, I really want to make that next step, and I really want to have something under my belt where I can say, I helped open something. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, yes, I was a part of that, but I wasn't in that core team that helped open that operation up. So I had reached out to my previous leader, the one that you saw in that picture, right, Julia? She was still there at the time. I reached out to her and I said, hey, I think I want to come back to the hotels. I miss it. I miss that team, and they had just announced, right, that they were going to be opening Pixar Place Hotel. I sat down with her. I kind of walked her through what my ideas were, what I envisioned, what I had hoped, what our hotel would look like at the end of the renovation. And I said, I want to be part of your team. I want to come back, and I want to do this. And there was a little hiccup there. It wasn't just her approval. I had to get the director's approval, which was Ron Salaji. So I sat down with Ron. I told him basically the same thing, right? I said, this is what I want to do. This is the impact that I want to make. This is what I want the hotel to be. Because when I was there, I knew we had a really strong core group of cast members there. Consistently and beyond, our cast members were scoring higher and above than the other two hotels, consistently. We were getting scored low because our hotel was obviously a little bit outdated, hadn't been updated yet, but I knew our core cast of group, and I knew how strong and how hardworking they were, and how they were with our guests. And I said, look, Ron, I know what it takes, I know what it is to take this team to the next level. Let me help you make that happen. So he gave me the opportunity, and I was able to come join the Paradise Pier Hotel team at that time. It was August 2022, and our renovation was a whirlwind. Wow, we were supposed to finish within a year. We didn't end up finishing until 2 years later. So it was pretty insane, just the amount of drawbacks that we had. And a lot of it obviously it didn't fall on us. It was just construction schedules that just didn't align with us. And manufacturing things, it was just still 2 years after COVID. And even then, I'm sure you still hear about it today, just the effects of how that affected our businesses and just everywhere. It affects everything, right? It took a lot of time for things to get sent over to us from across the seas. So there were delays. There were companies that also were affected by it. They were going out of business, and we had companies that we had made contracts with them, right? So all of this were drawbacks to our hotel, and it really set us back. But something that we always remained positive about, right, and we wanted to focus on was just the cast. And you'll hear about that, and you'll see that as you're visiting the resort. If you ever get to work as a cast member there, right, we really do what we can to put our cast forward, right? And whether that is through the Disney Aspire program, through a bunch of other resources and tools that we have available for all of you, right? Discounts that are available as cast members, right? There's just so much that we offer to our cast members that you really can't find at any other company, right? So we really want to just focus on that and just ensure, right, our cast were taken care of, even though we were still falling behind with all of this, because not only were we anxious for this to finish, right, our cast were anxious for this to finish because they were the ones that were dealing with this day in and day out. But you as a leader, right, you as a leader in hospitality management, you have to remain positive. You have to make sure that you are always putting your best foot forward, right? So that way your cast don't see that and they don't let up. So I'm very happy, right, that we actually opened up. We had our grand opening this year, January 31st of 2024. It's about to be a year since we've opened. And it was an ongoing process throughout the way, right? It's just incredible to see the amount of work that we had put in to get this all completed. And again, it wouldn't be possible for this core group of team that we have here. So this is a group picture that we have of all of us there. And it was just an exciting time for us to just see and finally see, the love and care that we've been able to instill into our cast members, and that was shown with the product that was given to them as well. We're doing what we can to put our best foot forward and take care of the hotel now that we have it in brand new stinking condition. And I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to the future. My next step is I'd like to be my leader one day. I'd like to be an executive housekeeper. So again, I go back. I started here in 2014, right, 2013. I did not want to do anything with hotels. And look at me now. I'm so enveloped in the hotels that I don't want to leave it. So just let those doors come open, right? Whatever comes your way, accept it, and just know that it's just another path forward, and it's going to lead you to more paths down the way, okay? Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Edwin.
All right. Next up, Stephanie. Here you are.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, hello everybody. Hi. My name is Stephanie Andrea Khalif. It is fantastic to meet all of you. I'm sorry, I was supposed to do it the other way around. I'm so sorry. Forget that. Hi everybody. I am a park operations support project manager at the Disneyland Resort, specifically in Disney California Adventure. I'm also a Collins College alumni. I graduated in 2013. Let me go ahead and switch over to my slide. And my name is Stephanie Andrea Khalif. It's great to meet all of you. I am super excited to talk to you about my journey, not just at the Disneyland Resort, but also Collins College was such a big part of my career journey. So I'm excited to tell you all about that to hopefully see if you guys, maybe get some inspiration, apply some of my lessons to your future. Hopefully don't make some of the same mistakes I did. Learn the lessons a little bit earlier than I did. But anyways, let's get into it. Like I said, I started at Collins College in 2009, and I graduated in 2013. At the time, my reason for picking Collins College was transparently pretty simple. I lived in Orange County. I went to Foothill High School in Tustin, and I knew I wanted to do hospitality. And at the time, Collins College was the only school that had hospitality anywhere nearby, and I knew I didn't want to go too far. But lucky for me, it was one of the best in the entire nation. It was one of the top schools for hospitality in the entire nation. So it was an easy pick for me. I get to stay close to home. I get to stay near my friends, my family, and I'm getting a top-tier education. Why wouldn't I pick Collins College? So it was an easy choice. Similar to Edwin, I lived on campus because I still wanted the experience of having that college life. And I did college. I had the best time, guys. I was very involved. I did a lot of the clubs. So Cal Poly Hospitality Association, I'm not sure if that's still a club on campus, but I was vice president. My second year became president. My third year, my fourth year, I was vice president for Roundtable Food Professionals, and did a bunch of volunteer opportunities and things like that. There's a couple of photos up here that kind of point that out. This one up here, it was a volunteer opportunity for Pebble Beach Food and Wine Festival that the school took us on, and that was such a cool experience. It was a whole group of students. We all drove up to Pebble Beach, which is kind of near Monterey, close to the Bay Area. And we got to work alongside some very notable chefs, like doing prep for them. We got to work with notable wineries in California alongside their salespeople. It was really, really cool. We got to just really enmesh ourselves into the industry. And that felt like my first real taste of the hospitality industry, and that's something that I was able to do through Collins College. I also, was able to meet and hang out with a bunch of my fellow students for an entire weekend and built a lot of really awesome bonds. I actually dragged one of my roommates on campus. She was a plant science major. I dragged her along with me because she was studying viticulture here on campus. And she actually got a job out of this trip. She worked with Shandon Wineries a couple years later in her career, but it was through the contact she made volunteering there. So I also did RKR. Shout out to RKR. It was so fun. It's fun being back here in this room. I only have one photo of my time there, which is wild to me. And that is up in the top corner there. That little 4-grid picture is a photo my brother posted on Instagram. So apologies for the excessive filters. It was 2012, and that is just what we did back then. But that's the only photo I have of my time there. And it was a really awesome experience. I actually was able to work in my management week. I worked with a tea restaurant in Fullerton, Tranquil Tea Lounge. Unfortunately, they closed during COVID, but I worked with them and sourced their tea to do like a loose leaf tea service during my weeks. That was my project. It was really fun. Down below, it was a fun memory as I was looking through photos. I was really close with my group in RKR, and after class was done at 10, 11 p.m., whatever we finished up, we would always go out and do stuff. So that was a fun picture I found. We actually drove down to Anaheim. There's a very hole-in-the-wall donut shop called M&M Bakery, and they will fresh fry donuts for you to order. They'll put them in the fryer as you order them, and then they give it to you in a pizza box. So that pizza box you see on the car hood, those are donuts. But it's just a fun memory of the bonds are built. I still talk to a lot of those people. Same with the other events that I've done in the clubs and stuff. But I have this photo in the middle. You might be asking, why do you have a Disney photo in the middle of your college slide? And there is a reason, because there was at the time on the board of advisors a Disneyland leader. Her name was Mary Niven, and at the time she was director of food and beverage for the Disneyland Resort. And when I was president of Cal Poly Hospitality Association, I had a what if you just call Taylor up moment? And I was like, what if I just email Mary Niven and see if she'll let us do a tour of Disneyland? And I did, and she took it above and beyond. I was thinking we were going to get an hour-long tour of one of the hotels or something. It was a 2-day tour of the Disneyland Resort that she organized for us. We did, we got to tour. We got to tour the Grand California Hotel. At the time, it was Paradise Pier Hotel. Now it's Pixar Place Hotel. We got a tour of the Central Bakery, which is where Disneyland does all of their desserts for the entire resort. The Special Events Kitchen, or the Park Banquets Kitchen. And then Jolly Holiday Bakery on Main Street had just opened up at the time. And so we got a tour of that kitchen and got to talk to the team about what it was like opening a new location and everything. And then we got very discounted rooms at the Paradise Pier Hotel. We stayed overnight. It was such a cool experience and a really, really good precursor to helping me understand, I think, I'm not gonna say how complicated, but how widespread the organization of the Disneyland Resort is. There is so much that happens behind the scenes to make an entire theme park run. And that tour was a really, really awesome way for me to see that oh, this is so cool, and I wanna understand every single piece of this. So, there's that. Last photo I just wanna point out. Down at the bottom, this is a photo of, I think, Wines of the World, taught by Professor Margie Jones, now Dean Margie Jones. I'm only shouting this out because I needed to PSA to everybody in this room. Out of all of the classes that I have ever taken, in my entire education, high school and before, everything, that is the one that's come most in handy in my career. It comes up so often. You always, whether it's just talking to, whether it's my time at Disneyland working in food and beverage and restaurants, even just, it's the coolest party trick, because I think a lot of people think that wine is just wizardry, wine pairing isn't real. They think people are making it up. It's actually very simple once you understand it. And so when I can successfully do something, I was like, oh, you ordered this, you should try this wine. And they're like, what? Really? Wait, hang on a second, I'm gonna see. They're trying to call me out, and I was like, no, this is just how it works. They think I'm a wizard. They really think that I'm crazy, but it's come in handy so much. That is one of the most useful classes. Highly, highly, highly recommend whatever training that you can get in that. If you have any interest in food and beverage, or really in hotels, anything, it comes up so frequently in my career, so recommend. But back to Disneyland, I'm gonna talk about my career there. So my time at Disneyland, I've been there for 14 years, which sounds crazy. And it is a little bit crazy, but when you work at Disneyland, there's something about the culture there. Edwin knows, Michelle, that 14 years actually isn't that impressive at all. There's so many other people have worked there so much longer than me. Yeah, I think, we just had somebody celebrate 62 years. Yeah, Hank was 62 years. Wild. But anyways, I still feel like a newbie all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna get some water real quick, 1 second. So sorry about that. Okay, So 14 years at the Disneyland Resort. I started with the Disney College program, similar to Edwin. I applied for the Disney College program, got in, and was placed in merchandise operations on Main Street for an Emporium and Candy Palace. This was weird to me because all of my experience was in restaurants and hotels, all of my professional experience prior to that. But I was excited to work at Disney, and so I said, "Sure, let's go for it." I'm not going to question your methodology. Let's try it out and see how it is. I am so thankful at this point now in my career that I had the opportunity to do this because it is so helpful to me now. I worked on Main Street retail, was there for about 3.5 years. 3 of those years I was a lead. I was working alongside going to school, which in many ways I recommend. In other ways, please take care of yourself. I got very little sleep those 4 years trying to work full time and do college. But the work experience was really fantastic and really set me off on the right steps. I graduated in 2013. I didn't become a manager until 2015. So there's quite a gap where I was working as an hourly employee at the company. But I knew that I wanted to stay at Disney. I was convinced at that point that this was the company for me, and I wanted to really have my shot at being a manager there. So I stayed. When I very easily could have left or gotten experience somewhere else, which could have served me well also. I'm not saying that was, there's no right or wrong choices in this. That's just the choice I made. And I had to learn a lot of really hard lessons during that time because I felt so ready for management, and I was really impatient along that journey because I knew that I could do it, and I knew that I was ready for it, but it was just a matter of, it's really competitive. There's a lot of employees at Disneyland, and a lot of really talented employees at Disneyland. So that's not to say I didn't deserve it. It's just that there's other people who had more experience than me or had the right experience for whatever opportunities were opening up. So I continued to remain patient, but something that I learned, really important, I think, switch in my brain that I had, was I, at that time, made the mistake of thinking that if I worked really hard, that someone was gonna notice one day. And that isn't, unfortunately, how it often works. Yes, you have to work hard. Absolutely, you have to work hard. But there was a skill that I hadn't developed yet, and that was the ability to put myself out there and take an active role in my own career, that I had to flip that switch. So this is, my advice to all of you. Don't make that same mistake that I did, because for a lot of times it was me working really hard and waiting for someone to notice and Cinderella moment me, not to keep the Disney theme going. For a fairy godmother to come out of nowhere and give me the opportunity I was waiting for. And then something clicked, and I started setting up meetings with people and asking for advice. I started talking with my leaders and making my goals and my aspirations clear to them of hey, this is what I want to do. How can I get there? And then I used my talent for working hard to funnel into that advice. So when they told me, hey, you should try doing this, I did the work, and I showed them that I was willing to put in the effort to do what it took to take the next step, and that I was serious about my goals and aspirations. And I'm telling you, from the time I started doing that, in less than 6 months after being told for 2 years that I wasn't ready, in the matter of months, I was then told by my leadership team, hey, we want you to apply for this management training program. We think you're ready. So I did Emerging Leaders. I was Emerging Leaders at the time. It's changed its name a few times. It was DLE for you. It's back to Emerging Leaders now. So I did that. You can see the photo on the right there with all the colorful shirts. That's me and my Emerging Leader group, all waving in front of the train station on Main Street. I had such a fun time. I loved my Emerging Leader class. We were all very close with each other. We would all hang out with each other. We would all share stories, and I'm still friends with over half the class. We still talk on a regular basis today. So that was such a fun experience for me. Going back to the Wines of the World thing, another ways of my career that this came in handy was when I went into my Emerging Leader program, they asked me what lines of business I'd be interested in. I said hotels and food and beverage, primarily. And in my head, I was hoping for food and beverage. And my hope was that, I would work my way up. I figured I'd probably land at Pizza Port or Hungry Bear or something like that, and I would work my way up to eventually signature dining, fine dining, as we call it at Disneyland. And because of my wine knowledge, and I took my level 1 SOM certification through Collins College, I was placed at Carthay Circle during my management training. So I skipped a lot of steps because of my experience and my knowledge. And my leader, Jose Barragon, he told me that the reason why I was selected was because I had that certification and I had wine knowledge, and they thought it would be really useful there. So I got to achieve my long-term goals at the first step because of that. So that was really cool. After working at Carthay for a while, I did my management training program there, and then got the opportunity to be a leader at the Disneyland Hotel food and beverage team. So I was in charge of Steakhouse 55, room service. We have our concierge lounge, and the beverage storeroom. We have like a storeroom that all of the alcohol and the liquor for the entire resort, it all comes into one place and then gets distributed out to the rest of the resort. So I was also managing that. The way that Disney works is, things are always changing there. And within my first 2 months of working there, my boss was moved to a new position, and his position stopped existing. So I was the only manager in charge of all of that, about less than a year into my management career. So it was a little bit like being thrown into the deep end, but it was a crash course in so many different styles of, we got to open new styles of service. So we did classic afternoon tea at the Disneyland Hotel. That was something that I got to open there. We also did overlays like trick or tea for our Halloween tea, Very Merry Holiday tea. Valentine's Day, we did a synergy event when the Beauty and the Beast live action movie came out. We did a tea synergy tie-in with that, so I got to lead all of those initiatives. We did a new breakfast menu, so I got to redo our breakfast service there. I got to be a part of some really, really cool things, and got to see a lot of the behind the scenes of how these things come to life, because I was now the one driving it, since I was left alone with the restaurant and told to make it happen. And yeah, it was great. At that time, at Disneyland Hotel, while I was in charge of those areas that I mentioned, I also helped the day-to-day operations of Goofy's Kitchen, Trader Sam's, Enchanted Tiki Bar, Tangaroa Terrace, and the pool service. So I got the opportunity to do a little bit of every style of food and beverage service that the resort has to offer. Buffet, fine dining, quick service, even we had an outdoor vending cart at the pool, So it was a little bit of everything, and so it was a really, really great experience where I just got to get a little taste of everything. So the opportunity came, Carthay needed another leader, so I jumped back over there. And now I got to take all of my knowledge and kind of reapply it to a place I had already been. Where it was fun, I came in as someone with no knowledge and as completely, no background, no knowledge in food and beverage, and having to learn the ropes from the start. And then I got to come back as someone who was a lot more seasoned and experienced, that had a lot more understanding. So it was cool to almost get a second go at it and try that all out. So I have some fun pictures here in the middle, because honestly, when you work at a theme park, I think a big part of why I went back to Carthay, even though it was a lateral move, was because just working at Disneyland in general, but there's something about being in the theme parks that was so special to me, because you get to work alongside so much happening. Like, when you're a restaurant, you're not just a restaurant. You're like a part of something bigger. You're a part of a whole story that's being told inside those parks. So you have to have fun with it. And I felt like I really had the opportunity to have fun with it at Carthay Circle. So this was a fun tradition that I had started there, where on Mickey and Minnie's birthday every year, on this day in particular, November 18th, I think, I would buy cards, and we would put them up at the host desk, the host podium, when people would check in, and we'd invite people to sign Mickey and Minnie's birthday card. And guests would sign it all day, write their little notes, say happy birthday and all of that, and then near the end of service, I would tell my hosts, I want you to start looking for someone who, we're gonna invite a guest to come and be the ones to present these cards to Mickey and Minnie. I want you to just you'll know when you find the guest. You'll know, but find them and then ask them if they want to help us out. And so we have the two pictures here of these two families, and we got Mickey and Minnie to come and sneak into the lobby for a private meet and greet session. We had a photographer there, and then these two families, these hosts just met them, they learned their stories. One of the families, I think it was this one up here, they were celebrating someone in their family had passed, and this was a trip that they had been all planning together. They didn't want to cancel the trip because they still wanted to celebrate the life of the person in their family who had passed. So it was a really special moment where we got to give some extra magic to like an important memory for these guests. And those are the kinds of fun things that we got to be a part of. So my photo right in the middle, we got to take a photo with all the cast members who helped me like pick out the people and got the cards signed all day. We get to have a lot of fun like that at Disneyland. So that's one of my prouder moments. And we have a lot of things that we've done that are like this. You know, we don't wait once a year and just do it once a year. Like we find ways to celebrate and have fun with it throughout the year. But this is one of my favorite memories of getting the opportunity to do it. There came a point at Carthay Circle where I felt like with my experience at Disneyland Hotel Food and Beverage and now Carthay Circle, and just starting out where I wanted to end, and I was like, hey, I think I've done what I want to do here. I think I've done it. What else is there out there? I kind of want to like stretch my legs out a little bit more and figure out what is the next step. I actually, fun fact, shout out, you don't know I'm going to do this, but Michelle Gendro, I had a conversation with you, and and I sat down with you, and I was like, hey, I want to take it to the next level, and I'm not sure what that looks like, but I'm curious to see what you think might be a good, here's what I like to do in my current job, here's what I think I'm good at, and Michelle Gendro put it in my head that, she told me, she's like, have you ever thought about project management? It sounds like that's what you're interested in, and that planted a seed in my head that took a while to flower, but it certainly did. And so I started setting my sights on project management. And at the time, an opportunity arose to head over to Disney Special Activities. And one second. Disney Special Activities is a very vaguely named department. Yes, so many different projects. Disney Special Activities is the department at the resort that takes care of all VIP and high-profile visits. That can look like a lot of different things. That can look like someone who purchases, guests who purchase a VIP tour. That can also look like a Club 33 member, someone who is part of a membership. That can also be things like company executives, Fortune 500 executives, celebrities, promotional events, corporate alliance partners that we're hosting on visits. Basically, they take care of itinerary planning and then escorting those guests, those high profiles, like around the parks. So I worked with them a lot in Carthay Circle because I was setting up dining reservations for them all the time. And the opportunity came up where they had a spot in their team and they reached out and asked if I'd be interested. And I said, what do you do exactly? I had no idea. And after learning more about it and sitting on interviews, there was one thing that was really the selling point for me. They said, this is not a normal operation. We don't expect you. We're as a restaurant, you walk around, you table touch with people, you have like a physical building that you're in. There's no building for us to sit in, really. The guests are all over the parks. Like these visits are happening across the entire resort, and we don't expect you to go, stand in, follow a guest around while they're with their VIP tour guide and hang out in the lightning lane with them to table touch with. That's not exactly the experience that they're looking for, what we feel like is appropriate. So a lot of this really is project focused. You are going to be behind the scenes, not necessarily out on the floor, not necessarily out with your customers. They're going to be out doing their jobs. You're going to have to be thinking about how to make their jobs easier tomorrow, next week, 6 months from now, a year from now, and putting all of that stuff into motion. And that's where I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I love to do. I love doing the planning. I love solving the problem before it happens. So it was an easy yes for me. And I loved it. I spent 6 years in Disney Special Activities. And I honestly probably could have spent I would have been happy to spend the rest of my career there. I had a great time. I was in charge of Club 33 member services. You can see a little photo at one of the events at the club down at the bottom, where we got to assist Club 33 members. We did registration for events. We took care of all of their trip bookings and things like that. I also did VIP tours. It's a fun photo of a candlelight processional. It's a yearly holiday show that we put on as a thank you to all of our partners and sponsors. It was a really, really fun experience. I spent 6 years there, but again, came to the point where it's like, I feel like I know everything I need to know about this department. I've become a subject matter expert, and while that's great, I love teaching other people what to do and how to do it and help guiding them, but I want to be learning as well, and I don't feel like I am anymore. So, had the opportunity to apply to become a project manager for park operations, and I was able to get it, and I got placed at Disney California Adventure on the park operations support team. See, it's hard to describe what I do because it's not really traditional project management in the sense of like project managers manage timelines, budgets, communication. There are a lot of people who do those things at Disney. For me, as park operations support, I am essentially, the best way to describe my job is I am helping represent operations in all of those projects that are happening. Because a lot of times we have people who are subject matter experts for food and beverage and subject matter experts for retail and subject matter experts for entertainment. But what happens when you have an event that is combining all of those elements together, like the food and wine festivals in Disney California Adventure, right? And what happens when you have about 10 different events that are happening over the same span of days? How are they interacting with each other? How are they working around each other? And how are they working around the day-to-day operation? So that way, some poor customer doesn't show up to find construction walls around their workspace, so they're totally unable to do their job. I help ask those questions of like, hey, I know that this team also plays in this space or will be playing in this space for this event. Let's bring them into the conversation and let's figure out a way to work around it. Or sometimes there's a weird, unique problem that needs solving, and it's not really anybody's line of business. We don't have enough tables in the park for the festivals. But we can't put tables where we need them because we need to have a walkway when the parade goes by. So how can we rethink or redesign a table to fit in this space so that way it can be easily removed without having to have like cast members like lugging furniture around on stage? It's not a really good show. It's not super safe. So that's where I will come in and try and problem solve in those spaces. My projects can look anything like events. It can be like construction that's happening. We have a lot of construction happening at Disney California Adventure. We have three new attractions that were announced and a land that was announced for a park. All of that work is starting to begin and is very impactful to our day-to-day operations. We're having to work around a lot of logistics. And sometimes it can be rolling out initiatives from more of like a working standpoint, like what's a tool that can help make managers' jobs easier? Like how can they, follow up with attendance disciplines easier, things like that. So it looks like a lot of different things, and I kind of just have to fill whatever gap that I'm placed in, but basically, if it involves multiple lines of businesses and it involves operations or my impact operations, I get put in there to just make sure that everything can continue to function regardless. If there's any change of the status quo to the day-to-day operation can still go on without impacting the guests in any way. So that is what I do. My last slide, I've kind of been talking about this the entire time, so it's going to be pretty quick. I've been sharing the advice that I've been given. These are my do's and don'ts, the things that I've learned along the way. And if you were paying attention, I talked about all of this already. One, I'm going to be all over the place here, so just bear with me. Don't stay passive. You have to take charge of your career, and you have to put yourself out there. You can't just be a workhorse, and you can't just be a show pony. You have to be both. I know it's a weird analogy, but we all know the show ponies, the people who say, look at me, look at me, look at how cool I am, look at all the fun things that I can do, but don't have the work to back it up. You have to have the work to back it up as well. But don't discount those show ponies. They know what they're doing. You have to be able to put yourself in front of people too. 2, don't hide yourself. I didn't really touch on this, but I should have. When I went from Carthay Circle to Disney Special Activities, that was a big learning in my leadership journey. I had one of my cast members, one of my leads at Carthay Circle, write me a card, a goodbye card. And in that card, she had a statement that has stuck with me. And she said, when you go to your new team, please make sure to show them who you are. The real version of you is a much better leader than the Disney version of you. And that was really important for me to hear because I think it's easy to play the part of what you think a manager should be or what you think a leader should be. Act the way that you think they would act, say the things that you think they would say. But authenticity is, I actually became, she was right, 10 times a better leader once I just started being my real self and started being honest with people. I am like a big nerd. I like video games a ton. Shout out to the Pokemon hat. I like video games. I stream on Twitch with my friends. I have a D&D podcast with them as well. I go to conventions on weekends, and that is something that's really important to who I am. Like it is a part of me. It's a big part of what makes me me. And when I started actually, I used to hide that from everybody at work. Like nobody knew that I was into those things. It was like a secret. When I started talking about it, I actually was able to connect with people so much more genuinely. And it helped me to build relationships. I talked about at Collins College, I was very involved. Same with Disney. The reason I'm even standing up here today is because I volunteered at, I did one of our Disney Volunteers program and volunteered at the Hospitality and Court, where I was able to, thank you, Michelle. But I was able to reconnect with Margie, and I met Carolina, and like that's a part of why I'm here today. I even met Nestor, and we were like, we both love retro video games. We were chatting for like, people were trying to get us to shut up about video games because we were talking so much with each other. But it really, like, it is actually very useful. I don't know, I find, this is just my perspective, I find that most people at work are desperate to be reminded that they have a life outside of it. And so when you ask people or you talk to them or you connect with them, whether it's, you can talk about your favorite sports team or, do a golf tournament at work, just participate in things that like showcase or that connect with who you are as a person. Obviously, use discernment, be professional at work. I'm not saying carte blanche. There's some things that you shouldn't bring to work, so obviously use your judgment. But people want that. People want to connect with other people as people. So you will get yourself much further ahead if you do that. Don't be the work robot. No one likes that, and that's not who you are. Building relationships, again, as I said, whether it was Collins College or work, so critically important. I can't stress enough how much that has done for me. The phrase that I heard that I love to use, extra credit is mandatory. If you are going to be working late, if you're going to be putting extra hours into work, you should be putting it into the relationship building. I truly mean that. Don't be a workaholic. If you can't get your job done in your 8-hour day, you're not as good at your job as you think you are. I really mean that. Don't overwork. It actually is a show of competence. If you can get your work done in the amount of time, like in your work day, that just shows that you're good at your job. You have to get all your work done, of course. Don't just leave early before it's done, but learn how to get it done in that time. So if you're going to be putting those extra hours, do it in the stuff that is going to help build those relationships. Do volunteer projects. Do those extracurricular things, softball leagues, golf tournaments, all of that stuff. We have canoe races at Disneyland where you can show up at like 5 in the morning and race canoes. I've built so many fun relationships and bonds with my teams and my coworkers by doing stuff like that. So that's where you want to put those extra hours in. Jumping back over to don't forget the good. There's a lot of glamorous things about the hospitality industry. People get very jealous of me when I tell them all the cool things I get to do because of my work. But there's a lot of not glamorous things as well. You have to remember the good stuff and you have to hold tight to it. So that story I shared with you about like the fun that we would have where we like did birthday cards for Mickey and all of that, like you have to keep yourself tied to that part of the job and what you do because it's going to make the bad stuff feel so much better if you just continue to remind yourself why you're here and why you do it. Define your why. Again, speaking of why, for me, hospitality is about look, people, when they're on their deathbeds at the end of their life and they see their life flash before their eyes, hospitality industry, we're in the business of making those memories happen. Quite literally, that is a huge honor. Like people choose to celebrate their weddings with us, their birthdays with us, anniversaries, graduations. They're, like I talked about, this family they were celebrating the life of someone who had passed. That's a huge, huge responsibility that we've been given as hospitality professionals, and I find that to be a huge honor. So for me, that's my why. I take it very seriously that these people are trusting me to create an incredible experience for them, and they're trying to create lifelong memories, the ones that are going to flash before their eyes at the end of their life, the moments where they spend time with their loved ones, with their kids, with their families. That is a huge responsibility. So I'm proud to be a part of that, and that's what keeps me going every single day. And the last one is put people first. That's not just the guests. I mean that for your team too, as future leaders of the hospitality industry. That also extends to the people that you lead. Please put them first. If you teach your employees to make magical, not just magical moments, but you teach them what it means, what hospitality means, what like true service means, and how to put guests first, that is going to make your job as a leader so much easier, because if they're focusing on that, then all the other stuff, you can clean up after them. But at the end of the day, it's all about the people. So ultimately, hopefully, along the lines of my journey, some of these lessons that I've learned, hopefully you've taken some of that and you can apply that to whatever is the next step for you. But I know I've had an amazing time in the hospitality industry, and I hope to continue to, and I hope all of you guys have just as amazing of a time as I have.
Thank you, Edwin Lugo and Stephanie Andrea Khalif. I have the job of timekeeper, so I would like to take a photo with all of you. We're going to ask you to head out to the stairs, grab your cookies as you go. Before you leave, I want to thank the instruction team who made this possible today. Ray Bishop, Kenneth Doko, Cherie Mooney. This is a real departure from what they normally do. Board of Advisors will take the photo and then head to the Marriott Learning Center. We'll kind of walk you in that direction. Thank you.